What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome to Leafs Digest. Bit of a somber episode after last night's game, breaking down Game 1 of the playoffs, Leafs versus Habs. Leafs loses one, Game 1, 2-1 to the Montreal Canadiens here. It's a tough one, really, with everything that kind of went down, starting with actually just losing Game 1. Like, that sucks. You lose on home ice Game 1. It was really anticipated. Everyone's thinking this is the year Leafs are going to do it, and you come out and drop that, and it gets the whole fan base kind of feeling like we felt for, I don't know, Goody, like 50 plus years. Not us, because we're only in our 20s, but 22 years of Leafs fandom for the two of us. 50 years without a cup for everyone else who's been watching this for their entire lives and has been on since that point and seen the last cup. But let's start right away with the opening pace of the game. We'll start right from the beginning, break this one down as it went along. I thought the Leafs came out flying. I think both teams really did. And one of the things you had talked about was how you thought that the Habs changing this lineup could create a physical problem for the Leafs. And I did notice right away that the Habs were playing a very physical game. They were out hitting the Leafs. That was no surprise. We kind of expected that to happen. And Josh Anderson had said prior to the game they were going to absolutely hit the crap out of the Leafs. Like, that was kind of their plan. It's just to mash the Leafs. But you may see this differently, but I didn't think that the Leafs were being out physically played, if that makes sense. They were being out hit statistically, yes, but I don't think they were being out muscled. I think that they were matching the intensity of the game. They were matching the speed, and they were matching the physicality. They were hitting. You had guys like Austin Matthews finishing checks. Even Mitch Marner, not as successfully as other guys, but he was finishing checks. You've got every single guy pitching in. Nick Foligno, I noticed the first thing that happened in the first period. Whistle goes, Nylander's kind of just coasting by in the corner, and I think it was Ben Sherratt just bumps into Nylander after the whistle. Like, completely unnecessary, but it's playoff hockey. That's what's going to happen. And Nick Foligno flies in from like the top of the circles and just grabs him and starts a scrum. And it's like, this is stuff we've never seen before from Leafs players or the Leafs team as a whole, as in terms of how long we've been watching over the last 5 years at least. And it's kind of nice to see that, but I didn't think they were being out physical. I don't know another way to put it. Out physically played. They weren't being mismatched in the physicality.
They didn't look scared to me at all.
No.
That wasn't the issue. And I agree that they, and pace-wise, looked really good out the gate. And I was excited to see how the game went. They were a bit snake-bitten for sure, trying to get the first one there to go. But, and like you've already said, not the result we wanted whatsoever. But the start was looking really good. And then I'm sure we're going to get to it naturally. The Johnny T play happens really early, and that just kind of changes the whole tempo of the night. I'm not going to say the series, whole tempo of the night. It was like after that, the whole physical bite to the game that we thought was going to be there. It was still there, but only kind of in physical form, not in spirit. Like, no one was really fully into that game afterwards, it seemed, especially the Leafs. They were just so shaken up after what happened. It was a terrible optic. Obviously, Johnny T's okay, thank God, but people got pretty shook, and it's a shame because we looked really awesome out the gate. Now we're down a great player. Again, I don't think this squanders any of our final goals for the season, but not helpful whatsoever, especially from a morale standpoint.
No, definitely not. And like, as far as that first 10 minutes of the game goes, there wasn't too much to break down there. It was very high paced. Lots of hitting, lots of chances. The Leafs were playing really, really well. I loved what I was seeing from them early, and then that Tavares injury happens, and it was just like very eerie feeling. And you know what? Actually, I thought of right away was, remember when Muzzin got hurt last year? Having no fans in the building makes an injury like that. Any injury in general is scary, to say the least. Like, you always hope for the best for the guy. You never want anything to be serious, especially when you're watching it live. It's even more scary because you really don't know what the outcome is going to be. But having no fans there and just dead silence is a very, very eerie feeling while it happens. And I couldn't help but think of that Muzzin injury from last year.
Oh, it just puts the moment under a microscope. It seems like it just magnifies all the emotion, all the staleness in the air. It's really terrible. And they were saying that's got to be the most quiet an NHL playoff arena has ever been. And it just, when you combine, I mean, what happened on the ice with the fact there's no fans there, not a single person on either bench was saying a word. It would just been the trainers talking to Johnny T. And thank God, like we said earlier, that he's okay. It's just, I knew as soon as that happened, I was like, wow, this isn't going to be a typical game breakdown, because I just felt like from that point, there was a really, really different momentum to the game. And we're talking playoffs here. We want to ride emotions. We want to have our depth players, not even our depth players. He's a star to us. I just mean we want to have our whole lineup there. And when you're missing your captain, right, that's just the point of having the C is a sentimental thing, right? It's this is your leader.
Yeah.
And then to have the guy go down in such a graphic fashion, it was terrible. I couldn't help but notice how it affected the pace of the game. Like I said, the Leafs didn't look scared whatsoever to me. I thought that the physical pace, the sort of the physical outmatching of the Canadiens at the gate was okay for us. I thought we were going to get past that really quick, and even though we were snake bitten, we were going to hammer one home and we were going to keep going. Had other plans in the night, though, and I can't judge the Leafs too much for what happened. Honestly, like, we can write this one off. I'm not mad at anyone. Let's see what happens in game two, but my prediction's already out the window. No sweep for the boys.
Yeah. Well, it's hard too, because I think about it as like, yes, both teams were on the ice for it, and both teams had to witness that, and both teams are hoping that the guy is okay. I imagine every single guy on the Montreal Canadiens bench, their coaching staff, their management, like, nobody wants anything wrong to be wrong with John Tavares. Like, everyone's hoping for the best for him in that scenario. But I can say that being on the team that injury happens to someone would be a very shaking experience going forward in the game. I know two experiences that I've had was where guys had to, or the team had to go to the room while guys on your team are injured and being taken away in like an ambulance to the hospital. And going back out to play the rest of the game just doesn't feel right. If it's a very weird, eerie feeling, and knowing that your friend, your teammate, your captain is on his way to the hospital with an injury like that you just watched happen right in front of your eyes is it's a very like spooking experience in a lot of ways, and it's probably affects the Leafs more than it would the Habs. Now, I don't think you can make it like an excuse for the Leafs, but it is kind of built in there and say, oh my God, like that was a crazy thing to watch happen, and you can't really put too much on them there. Now, that Corey Perry play, you cannot fault him at all. There was nothing intentional about that. I don't think there was anything dirty with what he did or with what happened on that play. And I think that the response from both teams essentially indicated that both teams were aware that that was the case. I think that the Foligno fight was not, when I first saw it, okay, I flat out, I thought that was unnecessary. Like, we didn't need to be fighting. There was no need to fight Corey Perry there. Everyone in the building knew that it was accidental. But that being said, once I saw the quotes from after the game, I was kind of understood it a little bit more and was like more okay with the fight and more understanding of like, okay, yeah, I get why it happened. Because even Foligno and Perry were both in acknowledgement that it was an accident, and Perry knew that Foligno knew it was an accident. Corey Perry came out after the game and said between like on that engagement, there was a conversation that happened with them off the draw. And Perry, in short form, essentially said, Foligno came up to him and said, like, we know that it wasn't intentional. Let's get this out of the way. That was our captain. That was the short form of what Corey Perry said. And then Nick Foligno was quoted today saying, our captain is laying on the ice. They would have done the same if it was their captain. The hit wasn't malicious. The fight takes away any gray area. Perry's a big boy. It just allows everyone to go back and play. And to be completely honest with you, after hearing both those quotes, I'm fine with the fight. I don't think it changes anything for the game, but I think it does eliminate any of that possibility of gray area or conversation that could be going on after the fact. Because I think that one of those things too is like, if that fight doesn't happen, there is potential. You never know, and it's always a what if, but there is potential that maybe the game does get out of hand. Maybe guys start taking liberties on each other and trying to avenge someone or something along those lines. And it happens in a dirty way throughout the game. The other part of that, which I know that the players never think about this, especially in the moment, but the Toronto media and the Toronto fans, 50% of them would probably have been going absolutely insane today, saying typical Leafs, no response. That's your captain. He's on his way to the hospital. How can nobody do anything? Foligno does this and the conversation's over. It's done. It's solved and that's it.
I can already see it. Some people on Twitter would have been like, oh, we're afraid to cross the line again. You know, I wouldn't hate to see it these days. And then, you know, someone would cross their, I guess by some people's definition of crossing the line, making a player like Perry fight, even though Perry's been a scumbag in his career before. Not saying that there was any intent there. I think there was actually none. Completely none. But I think that you need to send a message to your teammates that I'm going to protect you. And in the Leafs situation, that's been something that our talent has never felt, and reasonably so. Look at our lineup previous to this year. Like, who was going to go protect them if something like that happened? And
Yeah.
I get it. You're not going to like beat up Perry and then make it so that his split-second decision next time will allow him to avoid something like that. It's not like that at all. It's more just seeing that when stuff does happen by accident, we're still going to make you pay for it if you put a guy out like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's one of those things that now everyone understands. There is an understanding in the series now. If someone gets severely hurt, it's a real warning against the liberties or playing recklessly. That's the way I'll put it. Is it's helping players realize that, reckless play or playing so hard and close to the line that you accidentally hurt someone, that's going to cost you. And Perry didn't do that, but I think his example there, like, I agree with what Foligno said. It removes all the gray area. Yeah. He understands the Toronto market. He's from it. He's not ready to sit here and get criticized for not standing up for the captain and then need to play the whole entire playoffs. It's one of those moments that you won't get back. So it's super important that you go ahead and act in the moment.
Yeah, and I think too, like, it just ends that whole incident right then and there. Like, it just stops it right then. Like, nobody is going to be thinking about that going forward in terms of what Perry did. Yes, everyone's going to have Tavares in the back of their minds thinking about what happened to him and hoping he's okay and continues to recover, and hopefully he can. I mean, I don't think it's likely, but hopefully he can get back to playing in these playoffs if the Leafs continue to go on a run here. At some point, he can join the lineup. But I do think it just ends that incident in general, right? Like, it just shuts down that whole Perry Tavares situation. Now everyone's focus can just be on Tavares and hoping he's okay.
Yeah, and I don't mind the savage mindset where it's just an eye for an eye. And I know it's someone would hear it and probably vomit, or a mom would cry hearing that. It's like, hey, but like, this is the sport of hockey, right? Yeah. Like, these guys signed up for something that is advertised to remove your front row of teeth. Like, come on. It's one of those things where it's, they're not there to hug each other and uplift each other. They're there to chirp, hit. It's the playoffs, right? Like, this is how they want to roll. Mm-hmm. And when someone gets hurt like that, I don't mind there being an ultimate bell in there. Even like, I didn't mean to. It's like, that's too bad. You went too close to the line. Our guy's down. He's hurt. I know it's one of those things. People are probably going to argue with this a little bit. I know it's dark, but these guys, that's the mindset right there. There's savages out there sometimes, and that helps keep people in check.
Yeah.
I know it might be a very subconscious thing, but people will think about that now. They don't want to answer the bell, and Foligno just filled the guy on live television. Like, could you imagine if Perry somehow won that fight? Like, we may as well pack the bags at that point. So I honestly, when it happened, I was like, right, like, that needed to happen.
Yeah,
that's how I felt.
Yeah, when it happened, I was kind of more on the opposite end, I would think. And not in terms of like, oh, that was terrible. I will never think that when like a fight happens. I was more of just like, come on, like, that was an accident. We know it was an accident. But hearing their quotes after was more of just like, okay, whatever. Like, I get it, and then move on with it. Like, that's just the way it is. He solved it. It's done with, and there's no more questions about it.
The explanation was really good from Foligno. I agree. That helped me really firm up how I felt about it too.
Yeah. So then after that incident happens, the Leafs definitely looked discombobulated. They were just out of sorts after the fact, and it took them a little while to get going. And unfortunately, that allowed the Habs to jump out on top. Josh Anderson scores the first goal of the game, first goal of this series, on a breakaway on Jack Campbell, and that is just a mental breakdown by the Leafs. Like, allowing Josh Anderson to split the two defense like that. Eric Stahl fires a long stretch pass to split the D, head down on a breakaway. You just can't be allowing that kind of stuff, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, Montreal didn't score an ugly goal last night, but to start off with the Anderson one, it was a lapse by the Leafs. And again, if you're going to have a few of those in a game, at least it was limited to the point where they only put up 2 goals. The offense for us was the issue. Like you already said earlier in the intro, that Jack Campbell did play quite well. This was no knocks on him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's Josh Anderson's a guy that if we don't key onto him and maybe put a little bit of fear into him, he's going to be an issue all series. And that's just a skill play, right? We always think about Josh Anderson being the guy who's going to be physically intimidating. He's pretty good too. So, we got to be careful. They're a pesky lineup in Montreal, but I'm going to be honest. I didn't see that kind of resolve coming from them in game one. So I think that Johnny T moment just, they took advantage of the fact that the Leafs were really deflated after that.
Yeah. And then luckily for the Leafs, they didn't allow it to get too far out of hand at that point. They just, they just held on, and they they just they just held on and held it at 1 goal, got to the intermission, allowed themselves to regroup, get out for the second period, and they came out playing really well to start the second period. They had some good chances, they were humming, then they actually get on the power play. And the power play was looking real good to start. I thought the power play looked incredible. They were creating lots of chances, they were getting lots of shots on goal, there was a lot going on, and it looked great. It actually even led to the Nylander goal, not in terms of the power play scoring, but more so the momentum that the power play had generated allowed for that Nylander goal to happen. The Leafs were just buzzing. They were all over the Canadiens, and then the Nylander line comes out there and buries one. And it was directly generated from the power play. But then, flip side of that, allowing a shorthanded goal for the second goal of the game. This power play, I saw a stat today. In the last 25 games the Leafs have played, the Leafs power play has allowed more goals, 6, than they've scored, 5.
That's actually just embarrassing.
It is.
There's no way around that one. That's embarrassing. I don't even know what to say because so someone would probably, okay, we need someone with a bit more defensive upside out there to help us if we have a breakdown, or just not to have the breakdown happen. So, okay, so I guess we move Sandin. Maybe Riley comes back in because the blue line's looking loose. We took out Riley already for Sandin. So it's just all these things like, what is the answer? You want to put like Muzzin out there on the power play? Like, I don't even know. It's just, there's got to be some sort of internal answer for that because it's been an issue going on for a really long time. And when great teams are trying to peak before the playoffs, normally the special team stuff is some of the first stuff you hammer out. Mm-hmm. And we just haven't had that yet. So it's unfortunate. If we want to figure this out and get through the first round for the first time in forever, that's going to need to be something we check off.
Well, and you know what, too, is that something we discussed in previous episodes is that if your power play is not going to score, that's the way it is. But you cannot allow them to be scoring on your power play. Like, them getting opportunities and scoring on your power play is exactly, as we mentioned, a momentum killer. Like, you have Paul Byron come flying the other way, get a breakaway opportunity, and scores a fluky goal essentially on Jack Campbell. It was really nice, but more so fluky in terms of he falls down, kind of grabs the puck, fires the top corner over Jack Campbell. But it's just, you can't allow them to have opportunities. That should never be happening.
It shouldn't be at all, and which is why this was so tough to see. Like, the Leafs, these are the really easily avoidable things, which is why I'm like, when you're peaking at the right time, you got to take care of that stuff, like the special team stuff. It is not hard to prevent a goal when you're 5-on-4. Like, to me, it's ridiculous. And maybe we got to point the finger at Sheldon Keefe a lot because this guy, let's be honest, he's got an easy team to coach. I know he's won basically everywhere he's been. I'm not a Sheldon Keefe hater at all. I think he was an improvement from Babcock's style and approach, but I don't know. There's some glaring questions. You have such a well-rounded lineup now, and there's still these real deep-rooted issues with the way you're running your power play when you've got a world-class lineup. I don't know. I'm starting to look the coaching way because we've had other guys rotate in there. Like Sandin was in there now, same issue. I mean, we got more generated in terms of energy, momentum leading to that Nylander goal. But still, we're getting scored on 5-on-4. That negates it right there. Reason we lost the game.
Yeah. Why would you? So I would say not necessarily a Sheldon Keefe issue in terms of needing more coaching for the power play. I would almost lean to they might be overcoached on that power play. Like, they may need to just allow those guys to just go out there and play and not think. There may be overcoaching going on. I don't know where you were coming from on that.
Well, no, if there is overcoaching, that's still a management issue.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just wasn't sure what your thought on it was.
Oh, and to be completely frank, I couldn't give you the diagnosis on, okay, no, we need to move him here, or no, it's because you're running the wheel at this point. I couldn't tell you, but all I'm saying is throughout everything they've tried, lineup-wise, approach-wise, in this very past important stretch, like we've been saying, they've been getting burned when they're up a man, and they've had a lot of trouble scoring with the man advantage sometimes. The momentum's great. It helped us out on the first night, but like I said, the special teams came back to bite us in the fact that we got scored on shorthanded. So whatever it is, there hasn't been enough of an adjustment, and I refuse to believe the players aren't good enough. Like, this is an issue that's recurring and recurring and recurring. So whether it's overcoaching, lack of coaching. There needs to be brought into a healthy medium on whatever side it is, because I couldn't tell you what's causing it, but it's very apparent that this is a trend.
Yeah, and it needs to be solved quickly because this cannot continue on through this playoff series, or if you hope to have any playoff success at all. Because even if you get by this playoff series and you don't get it figured out, it is going to be a problem going into other series against Edmonton or Winnipeg, whoever comes out of there, and then heading over and playing the rest of the teams down in the States. It is going to be an issue, and it needs to be solved. Now, one thing that we kind of just glanced over, that William Nylander goal. I thought Nylander played a great game last night.
I did too. Willie's edges are something I've been noticing more and more. He's got to be one of the most smooth skaters in the NHL. It helps him operate in those phone booth size areas where he's getting opportunities. He just moves so effectively on the ice. It's something that I've noticed about him really since early in his career, but now that he's kind of getting the game awareness and the confidence, he's looked so good to me. And you talk about generating momentum. That's a guy who's good for, even if he's not filling the score sheet, helping us feel some offensive confidence, because he's ringing it off of pipes all the time. He's a good passer to a really underrated passer. And like I said, I can't get over his skating. It's something I've really taken note of this year. But overall, I love what I'm seeing from Willie. He definitely wasn't the issue in game one.
No, it almost looked effortless for him. Like, that's how he skates, right? Yeah. It's like he's not trying, which I think is something that people who like don't really know would look at him and say, "Oh my God, that guy isn't trying," because it just doesn't look like he's like going balls to the wall, like just every part of his body moving at full speed all the time, because how he skates is so calm and effortless and just stable. But I think he played really well. And then after he scored that goal, I think his legs picked up even more. And I think that him going forward he's going to need to step up on that second line with Tavares being out to continue to bring some sort of offensive pressure and depth to the lineup every single night. Because we look down, we have a good third line and a good fourth line, but that second line, if you lose Tavares, they can't go missing. Like, that second line cannot turn into a bunch of ghosts. They need to continue to bring the intensity and continue to get on the stat sheet, because they can't just be role players and filling ice time out there.
Yeah, well, you're right. And Willie needs to get into the mindset of second-tier star. And you get to see a lot of great stories in the playoffs about second-tier stars. Yes. A lot of stories that get people noticed, get them big contracts. I mean, Willie's already, in hindsight, people complained about the Nylander contract. It was a steal. Or if not a steal, just bang on value. Like, there's no way the guy should have been paid any less than what he got. So I really like Willie's contract, and I really like the way he's been playing. And it's funny, you talk about the effortless thing. A lot of people do see Willie as a guy where he gets he's soft. He's the soft guy criticism. They also think, he's this sweet. Yeah, I'm beating around the bush. They give him that sweet thing where he's not trying hard. He's relying too much on skill. It's not like that at all whatsoever. I apologize for the dog barking in the background. I'm up at my cottage right now. But yeah, Willie's been awesome for us. And I think if he can learn to really step into Johnny T's not here anymore. Like, he's got to get his swagger back is what I'm saying. Because he came into the league as a player who wanted the puck all the time. He thought he was going to be the Marner of the team. And it didn't pan out that way. But this is an opportunity to get a little bit of a fresh breath of life. And with him not in the lineup anymore, it's going to present way more opportunities and way more spotlight, way more upside. And I think Willie, if he wants to go out and be the man, which it seems like he does, he'll seize that moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then one other guy that you kind of talked about there, Mitch Marner. I did not think Mitch Marner had a great game last night. He had two 2-on-1s where he was controlling the puck on that he flubbed. The one was on the shorthanded. The other one was at 5-on-5. The first one, he allowed Josh Anderson to back check him. It was almost like he thought no one else was on the ice with him. He was just taking his time, looking past, looking shot, looking past, looking shot. Couldn't make up his mind. Josh Anderson strips him of the puck. He goes falling into the boards. The other one, he's coming down. He's on his weak side with his stick into the middle. He's kind of looking, and then he ends up falling over. He's like overthinking it or trying to do too much with the puck. Whatever he's doing, falls over, blows a 2-on-1. Those are two things that you don't see from Mitch Marner, especially not like often. They will happen here and there, but that is not something you think of twice in one game is going to happen. And then the third one, I wouldn't say this is like his fault or he blew this at all, but he just gets robbed by Carey Price on that one-timer pass from William Nylander on the 2-on-1. And it's just like, tonight is not his night. And then you even look at that first, or I don't think it was the first one that happened for the team, but that I think it was a Mitch Marner puck over the glass. Actually, no, it wasn't the Marner. It was Nylander that I'm thinking of. Sorry. But no, it was Marner. It was Marner puck over the glass. He chopped the puck over the glass. And like, it's just these little mistakes that he was making throughout the night that was just tough. Like, it's not Mitch Marner.
I was going to say it would make sense to get mixed up there with how many of those penalties we caught last night. But Marner is he's someone that I think he'll have a crazy playoff game. Like, he'll have 2 or 3 games out of the series, usually a little less, like 2 games where he'll really do great. And this is statistically supported. He'll stat pad a really great performance in the playoffs and disappear for really like 3 pivotal games. So I hope that doesn't repeat itself. Like, Marner's on a new level. I know there's a lot of Marner hate out there, and it's for stuff like that where he's got the careless giveaways or just a little snake bitten, so he doesn't look like a great scoring option. Those have been like knocks on Marner for a while, despite the numbers he puts up. I think he's still the real deal. I think he'll be awesome. And playing with Matthews, he's guaranteed to get the points. It just wasn't the Leafs' night. And like I said, I don't want to even oversample anything too much about that, because they were so distraught after losing Johnny T in that graphic display that, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt here, Philly, everyone gets the Tom Wilson get out of jail free card for the night, because I would have been really shaken up too seeing that. So I think that we just got to give him a bit of benefit of the doubt going forward and hope that a player like Marner can figure it out, because he has been this year. And I personally see him as legit. And I think that he'll figure out a way to get it done in the playoffs, because that's what legit players do.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll come back, but it's something that we can't just hope he does. Like, it has to happen in order for this team to have success, because that first game was just abysmal by him. That was a complete write-off, and it was not what we normally see from him on a nightly basis. Now, as far as Jack Campbell goes, I think there's no faulting Jack Campbell here. He made 28 saves. He had a 2.11 GAA, and he made .933 save percentage. Jack Campbell played a great game last night, and he only gave up two goals, and both were breakaway goals. There's nothing you can really complain about Jack Campbell for here. And it's funny, because I look at that and I say, in years past, if you lost 2-1, you might be looking at Freddie, and maybe not if they were those 2 goals, but you might be looking at Freddie and saying, man, one of those ones you should have had, or one of those ones you had to have, and we could have won that game. Jack Campbell, I look at last night, both those goals, I think there's nothing you can do differently. You probably want them back because it's a one-on-one situation. You're going against a shooter, but I don't look at them and say that was a bad goal. I don't at all.
No, if he saved those, he would have absolutely robbed them. Like, it's not, I mean, the one where the guy was on his knees, the Josh Anderson goal, I don't know how you would keep that out of the net. The other one, it was a little fluke here, but it's a broken play. So it takes a goalie out of the common mindset. The guy's shooting from his knees. It's actually probably a lot harder to save in a situation like that than most people would imagine. I think Jack Campbell played fine, but I did go through a moment where I was like, this guy needs to stop trying to play the puck. It never works out for Jack Campbell. He went out behind the net early in the first, fell over, and then tried to do it in front of the crease at 1.2 and almost ate it there and turned over the puck. I was like, this guy all the time gets over ambitious with the puck, and I like the confidence from him that he wants to be actively involved in the play. He's not afraid, which is good. But he just seems to pick the worst times with it, especially early on in the game. So long as it doesn't end up in the back of our net, I don't care that much. But it is something where I looked at Jack Campbell and I was like, hey, you need to look a little bit more ready.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I can see that, especially with the playing the puck. But I think overall, there's just not too much to complain about Jack Campbell here.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, looking on to the rest of the series, one of the things that with John Tavares being out for an indefinite amount of time, the lines are going to be shaken up. So we knew the lines were going to be fluid already, and guys were probably going to be coming in and out. But now there's a position where things are forced to be shaken up. So Kristen Shilton released the Leafs lines at practice from today, Friday, May 21st. And they go as follows. So that first line stays intact, Hyman, Matthews, Marner. But now here we go. Galchenyuk, Foligno at center, William Nylander on the right wing. Third line, Pierre Engvall gets in the lineup, Kerfoot at center, Mikheyev, and then that fourth line stays together, Thornton, Spezza, Simmons, and then the D all remain together, Riley Brody, Muzzin Hall, Sandy Bogosian. One thing they did have out there at practice today, which I will just blatantly say is, so they had Anderson and Riddick. Jack Campbell didn't practice. I flat out just think it's a rest day. This is a guy you need buzzing going forward. You're going to need lots of minutes out of him. You need him going every single night. And if you can spare him some rest by just not putting him in a meaningless practice after he played a good game, I don't think there's any point to it. So I don't think there's anything to look into on that goalie situation. I think they'll just rest him. He might have honestly gone to a different rink and just got some separate light work in. And then maybe he'll be on the ice tomorrow morning before the game. He'll be playing tomorrow night, in my opinion. I wouldn't look into that too much. But forward lines, Galchenyuk, Foligno, Nylander. Let's start there. Goody, how do you feel about Galchenyuk slotting into this lineup?
I'm so excited. I love it. I think that he's actually got so much to offer, but it's hilarious that the guy, we've talked about it, we've beaten the point to death, that he's just not going to help you out in the second half of your lineup because he needs players that are puck possessive, because he's not whatsoever. He's scrappy. He's got good hands, quick reaction time. It helps him bury a lot in front of the net, especially when the goalie's not even looking at him off a rebound, stuff like that. But he is surprisingly great at it, and it's worked out even through the small sample size that he's had with the Leafs. It was a big shocker to a lot of people he wasn't in the lineup, but for us who've been breaking it down, we kind of understand from the standpoint of he's not going to be a good depth player. He's a better Robin to someone bigger on a second or even first line, depending on where you're playing. But first line's ambitious. We love him on our second. I'm really happy to see him back in here. Obviously not because of the circumstances. I'd rather have Johnny T back and healthy, and just for his own sake too, to not have a play like that happen. But the reality is it happened. So moving forward, I'm loving that Galchenyuk's back in, and just a lot of poetic justice having a return to the lineup for this Habs series. The team that he last showed out against. I bet you he feels really comfortable facing the Habs because he himself was a really good Hab. I just feel like seeing the jersey for him, he's not intimidated. He kind of gets, a little bit of a resignation to his better days of playing. So I'm not worried about it at all. Maybe that's a stretch, but I just think that he's bound to do pretty well for us this series.
Yeah, I think that Galchenyuk is second line or bust, essentially. If he's not playing on that second line, he's not fitting into this lineup because he's not, it's just like you said, he's not a puck possessive guy. So he's not going to be able to fit into that third line. Maybe they could find a spot for him on that fourth line, but even then I don't think he would be as effective. So again, I think it goes back to he's on that second line or he's not in here at all. But I do think you're right. I think that him playing against the Habs will just provide him a new level of energy that we may not have seen from him given they played another team in this first series or in any other series. And I think that it being in this first series that they are playing the Habs could push him and give him a boost to play really well throughout this series, that if the Leafs do move on to play Edmonton or Winnipeg, it could just continue his impact on the game, on the series, and with this team moving forward, because he'll just be thriving off of what he's done so far in the first series and in this playoff run. So I do like Galchenyuk getting in there. I think he did play pretty well while he was at the Leafs, and he does deserve a spot in this lineup. And I'm going to flat out say right now I'm predicting a goal from Alex Galchenyuk in Game 2 of the Leafs versus Habs. I'm predicting Galchenyuk gets on the board with a goal.
Philly, you got to put your money where your mouth is and throw a little bet down on it.
With just flat out bet 365 Alex Galchenyuk anytime goal scorer. I will hammer that, and we will review that after tomorrow night's game, because I think Galchenyuk is scoring. I think he's going to be fired up, and I think that second line is going to be humming. I think it'll be like a Nylander or Foligno shot, and Galchenyuk is just going to bury a rebound or something along those lines. He's getting on the board, he is scoring.
Might be a good game to hit the over too, because you gotta feel like after that last night game, they're gonna be pent up. Take care of that mosquito. Sorry, cottage again. But yeah, they're gonna be pent up after last night. And I think Carey Price is gonna be a problem this series. We're gonna get the better of him a few different times, but no pressure Carey Price. We've hardly ever seen it before, because the Habs, whenever they've been in the playoffs, they've had some reasonable expectation. They've been a good team. Storied franchise like the Leafs, except they got some more recent excellence to point to than we do. So Carey Price had expectation, and he's had it from the beginning. He certainly still has it now on an individual level. But as a goaltender, knowing you're just this mass underdog in the series, I think it gives you a really helpful mentality. Certainly better than feeling like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders like Frederik Andersen's felt for so long. I think Carey Price is going to thrive with this mindset, which is scary. But I do think next game we're going to come out guns a-blazing. We're going to win that match. Whatever happens from there happens. We'll need to game plan accordingly. But I'd like to see Galchenyuk get on the board with something. And I think it's pretty likely given the kind of rebound we're going to need and want.
Yeah, I honestly I like Galchenyuk being there, and I think that it's a good move. So now moving on to the third line, Pierre Engvall. He gets in. He gets his first playoff game this year with the Leafs. How do you feel about Engvall getting that spot? Do you think he deserved it over a guy like Adam Brooks or Riley Nash coming out of the lineup? Like, what are your thoughts on Engvall being in there?
You could have argued that Engvall deserved it more than even Mikheyev, but like we all know, Mikheyev's the better player. It's just if you were to look at who's been best for you in this recent stretch of time that you're going to really like have that momentum carry over in the playoffs. I mean, you want to roll with Engvall, who has 0.8 goals in his past 10 games. It was a weird stat like that,
Yeah,
but
point
he's
per
been
game,
getting on.
0.8 goals per game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he's been really on a tear, and it's not like he's undressed the goaltender and really wowed the world, but he's done everything we've ever asked of him. I'm happy to see he's the guy that comes in, and he's got size to him. I know he's like a beanpole, but he's got some size to him. I think that just the height alone will help having in our lineup because we do have some undersized dudes, especially a guy like Kerfoot. So having him out there is it's nice from that angle. And I think Engvall's a welcomed addition back to the lineup. I actually do really like Brooks. And in a regular situation where they're both on their typical paces, I would take Brooks. But you owe it to Engvall after how he ended the season.
Yeah, I think Engvall is pretty deserving of getting in there, especially like he was playing really, really well at the end of the year. And I do think it was fitting that Riley Nash comes out. I think that was kind of one of those things for Sheldon Keefe, who is like, if this goes well in game one, great, and we keep him in there. It didn't. Now he comes back out. He hasn't played NHL action since like March or something along those lines, early March, and then he hasn't played with this Leafs team at all, so no chemistry built up in that standpoint. So I don't think I think it was deserving that he comes out and then one of Engvall or Brooks gets in there. Engvall does this time, and let's see what he can do with it. The only other thing that I kind of saw or thought might be a switch or a lineup change that could happen, and it's just my own thought on it, is I loved Brooks playing with Thornton and Spezza. So the only other way I would have seen it would have been you slide Kerfoot over to, or Kerfoot stays at the center, Mikheyev plays on that left wing, and then you bump Simmons up to the third line right wing, move Spezza back over to the right wing, and then Adam Brooks fills in that fourth line center. Just a minor little change, and again, I don't have any problem with Engvall being in there, especially considering how well he played at the end of the season, but that's kind of another lineup shift that I could see happening at some point if they don't like Engvall being in there, or they want to move things around, or they need a change in any kind of way. That's just my own personal prediction of something that could go down or something I would like to see. But again, like I don't have any problems with these lines, and you got to make work with what you can, because with John Tavares being out, there's a big hole to fill there.
It's huge, and it's going to need to be filled by committee. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens there, and that's why even down to your depth, it's going to matter how this Johnny T void gets filled, because it'll reflect in your bottom of the roster guys and how they're going to need to come up and sort of help muster up some offense. And I'm happy that Engvall is the first guy to get that call and taking Nash out. I think it makes sense. I was a little skeptical about the Nash situation. I think we just have such good internal competition already. Definitely having him there doesn't hurt, but I wasn't excited to see his debut, really. I didn't think it was going to be anything that wowed us. If anything, I was more excited to see maybe a guy like Engvall or Brooks get their first sniff in the playoffs.
right.
But now we're going to get that from at least Engvall. And Brooks is a guy that could be up next depending on how they do. And I really like Brooks. I think if he gets in, he won't make a mistake about it. He'll have a good game. Engvall, the leash is going to stay really short with him. He doesn't look great at the sport of hockey. Like he's honestly like quite good for, the relative scale, but in the NHL, he doesn't have skill plays that ever really blow me away. He's got a big long stride, which helps him cover a lot of ground fast. He's definitely got decent hockey awareness, better than a guy like Mikheyev. But I don't see him being a next level player that when games speed up in the playoffs, I think it's going to get maybe a little bit much for him. And if he even struggles one night, I bet you Sheldon Keefe's really quick to pull that plug.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think that that line will be pretty fluid in terms of guys coming in and going out, or sitting on the bench and having other guys filter through there as things go on, and if they're not playing well, because especially at this point, down 1-0 in the series, every single game matters even that much more. You're already at a disadvantage here. You're trailing, and you need to win you need to just keep winning here, because you don't want to go down 2-0 or 3-0 or 2-1, 3-1. Like, those are not scenarios that you want to find yourself in. So, with that being said, let's quickly go over our predictions from before. I said Leafs in 5. You said Leafs sweep this series. How do you see this playing out going forward, Goody? Because your prediction is blown. How would you change your prediction after last night's game? What do you think going forward?
I think we're going to 6 maybe now. I know it's a big shift, but losing your captain on a visibly horrendous play is something that we're going to take a while to rebound from in terms of cohesiveness, in terms of chemistry, leadership. It's such a ripple effect. Like, any guy that gets injured graphically like that is going to really ruin the night, but it's going to really screw with your whole playoff plan that it was John Tavares. So we'll see what happens from here. I honestly, I think from a strategic standpoint, we would all be a lot more concerned to see it have been Marner or Matthews. So we've got that saving grace that truly our two best players are still in the lineup with us. Hope Johnny T is doing great. I've heard from the hospital that he is. He's doing better. He'll be under the supervision of like family and team staff. So Johnny T is already worried about getting the team back in contending shape. You saw the tweet about how he's just focused on the guys still. He's hoping that they get it done.
Yeah.
And I think they can. They've already acknowledged the fact that regardless of Johnny T, the Stanley Cup remains the main mission that they truly believe they can get. But I think it could happen in 6 now. That's the honest truth, because not only did we lose confidence, but I think they just gained some. They're not happy about the hit, but I think they're saying, like, now that we're here, like, we got a better chance now. Like, Johnny T isn't in the lineup. I know it's a terrible reason why he's not there, but I'm sure they're kind of licking their chops now. Like, okay, this is a little bit less deadly of a Leafs team, and it's true.
Yeah, it is. Having your second line center and a guy like that quality out of the lineup is a big factor for the Leafs to be missing. But I'm going to stay strong on my Leafs in 5 prediction. I think, I picked Leafs in 5 anyways, so I gotta hold true to that, and I gotta stick with my prediction. I can't flip flop right away here. If something goes wrong next game, then I'll have to come back and make some adjustments. But I'm not going that far. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Leafs take game 2. Anyways, I honestly think that this Tavares injury, it's shaking for game 1. But I think that this is material that goes up on the board going forward and motivates the boys. They want to win for Tavares. They want to get out of this. They've experienced losing in the first round before. You look down, you've got Joe Thornton, Jason Spezza, Wayne Simmons, guys who have never won a cup. Thornton and Spezza may be on their last legs here. I think Spezza might come back, but this is probably it for Thornton. Like, who knows where he goes after this or what he does. And you're looking, if those weren't reasons enough to win or want to win the Stanley Cup, now your captain is sitting in his home because he can't even be at the arena at this point, watching you play, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's just another reason for these guys to win. And the final thing that I kind of think here is, I hadn't even thought about it, but someone texted me today and brought up the point. The 2019 Toronto Raptors lost Game 1 to the Orlando Magic in heartbreaking fashion when they were expected to win that series, win that game, and just kind of sweep the Magic. And the Magic came out and took Game 1 from them. And then the Raptors came back, swept that series, and went on to have a historic run and win the NBA championship. So I'm thinking the Leafs come through and just sweep the rest of the way against the Habs here.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good test, and adversity is not a bad thing I can tell for the Raptors. I mean, they're a group that's wired a little bit differently. They love adversity. They actually need it. Like, it's their whole engine. So losing that game, and it's been an ongoing curse with the Raptors that they always lose Game 1, and to have them lose it in their contender year where there's like, come on, isn't this supposed to be the different team? That's the way we're looking at the Leafs right now too. So I thought about that as the game was happening. I was like, you know what? I'm not ready to write this off yet. The Raptors, one of their best teams ever, they got it done, and they dropped a game 1, and we all thought, oh, we traded DeRozan for a guy who's going to have the same ceiling, all that stuff. Yeah. I'm not saying I thought that, but those were the comments I was seeing. And, yeah, it was. And thankfully, I don't think that's going on with the Leafs right now. I think everyone stayed pretty positive, maybe just out of the sheer want to not go insane. But I think that the Leafs truly do still have a shot at this thing. And I'm not reading too much into what happened last night, given those really terrible circumstances.
Yeah. And then one more final thing. It's something that we're going to be introducing going forward. We're going to give a grade for the game. So just a regular school grading. Game 1, Leafs versus Habs. The Leafs lose 2-1. Goody, how would you rate that game? What grade would you give it?
C plus. I was tempted to give it a B minus because they played pretty good. Sometimes the goals just don't go. Um, Campbell played well. I really liked it in the moment from Foligno doing that. He left it up to nobody other than himself. He said, whatever, I'll make a mistake and live by it, or I'll be the hero. Whatever people want to see me as, I don't care. I'm doing this for Johnny. Like, I liked that a lot. That's in the spirit of hockey. I know it's like, oh, you're assaulting him. It's like, but he's playing hockey. This is Corey Perry here. He's dealt it out as well.
Yeah.
Perry's a big boy. He said it himself. So I think that there was some redeeming things about it. I'm just C plus for. I mean, if I were to rate how I felt about the night, like, it was an F because I was worried about Johnny T's literal well-being.
Yeah.
But and we lost, so it was not a lot whole redeeming from that standpoint. But overall, if I'm evaluating the play, how I feel moving forward, it was a C plus.
I'm gonna go a little more positive than you here. I'm gonna go just a flat out B. I feel like a B is a little bit of a cop-out answer in terms of just the flatness of it. You just get a B. But I'm going to say B because I think it might have been lower if that was the score and that was the end result, not without the Tavares injury and that happening to him. I think the fact that that happened and they only lose 2-1, they keep it a respectable game. You have that shaking incident happen and you lose your captain all in the same game, all early in the game, and you still managed to pull out a 2-1 loss. I'm going to give it a B. It sucks that we lost the game, but you look at Campbell played well. I had no problem with the way the defense played. We only gave up 1 goal 5-on-5. Yes, it was a breakdown. They had a breakaway and they scored, but it was only 1 goal that happened. Then I would give the power play an F, like flat out. If we were just to break down each part of this game, I'd give the power play an F because not scoring, they generated chances, sure, but still couldn't get on the board. And then you give up one against that one against negates everything that you did that was good. It's like at that point, it's just wiped out. And then you just look at the fact that they kind of just, like, Carey Price played a really good game, and you can't look at it every game and say, oh, well, ran into a hot goaltender, because that excuse is going to run out of steam at some point. But I think that Carey Price played really well, shut them out. They had lots of chances. It wasn't like they weren't getting chances. They did play a good game. They met the physicality. They matched the speed. They matched the intensity, and it sucks that you lose game 1, but this series isn't over. It's far from over. There's plenty of hockey left to be played. So I'm going to give it a B.
That's a fair enough grade, and you're right. If you look at it from the relative standpoint of needing to play after that incident, it could warrant a B. I'm going to stay firm with C+, but I fully get what you mean. And I was just hoping they would have almost been able to turn that Johnny T incident to on-spot energy to go and start it off on the right foot, but when it's that visibly tough to watch and it's your captain, man, I can't assume anything. I don't know how they felt, but I know I didn't feel great all the way at home watching it, let alone being on the ice with them. So
yeah, no, it was tough. But so there you go. Our C+ and a B for our new segment that we're going to do. We'll give a grade at the end of every game that happens. But Goody, I don't feel good about being down 1-0, but I don't feel terrible. I think there's a lot of hockey left to be played. I think this is a different group that we're watching than we've seen in previous years, and I'm still confident. Leafs in 5. That's my prediction. I think we're sweeping the next few games, but we will find out soon enough. New lineup heading into game 2. Jack Campbell, I think, is going to stay in net. John Tavares obviously out indefinitely. We're hoping for the best for him, but we will see everyone after the next game, Saturday, May 22nd against the Montreal Canadiens at 7 p.m. See you guys then.